I say this to say I'm such a proud mama. And don't get me wrong, because some people will listen to this or the replay and say, well, is she trying to say that, we're not going to acknowledge that our children have certain delays and challenges? No, we have to acknowledge it first in order for us to move forward. But what I'm saying is, we're not going to allow that to hinder the development of our children. We're not going to allow that for them to point a finger or to pacify or to be, no, 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 no. We're acknowledging it, because acknowledging it first is how you're going to get the steps to get the help and the care that they need.
Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Sharika. My name is Sharika Swebi, also known as the Mind Reset Strategist. I am a certified life coach, mentor, published author, speaker, and of course, the host of this show. My guest today is a phenomenal Jamaican woman. That means she's a born Jamaican who has lived in America for a number of years. She is a philanthropist, that word. She's a
Okay.
community activist. She's an author. She's a student of psychology and a special needs mom. Melissa Mason, welcome to Conversations with
Thank you for
Sharika.
having me. It's a pleasure to be here
So,
today.
Melissa,
Uh,
you were born in Jamaica and
yeah.
you've lived most of your adult life or all of your adult life in America. Can you tell us a little about that experience? Where in Jamaica were you born and so on?
Okay, so I was born in Kingston, Jamaica. Um, what they would consider a grand spin. They say it's a bad girl place or bad people place, but I beg to differ. Um, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York for about 20 something years. And so I lived most of my life there, childhood, adolescence, into teenager, into adulthood. And then I relocated to where I am at right now with my son. So it was different, but you grow in and you just merge into the culture, but still not leaving your culture behind and taking
Mhm.
a piece of Jamaica everywhere I go. So presently I'm here in the States and I'm in New Jersey, which is a little bit more calmer than New York, but it's good for the developmental parts of your children. So definitely I'm in New Jersey, but yes, it's been a change, but it's a good change.
At what age did you migrate to America?
I was around 7 years old.
Was it a challenge, the transition?
Um, I wouldn't say much because I was so young.
Hmm.
So, you don't really have that culture shock, or, you're just happy. They're
Yeah.
gonna foreign. I don't want to talk about this foreign life.
Yeah.
So you think you're like a kid in a candy store, and just want that experience that you've heard and meeting your other family members. So
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. Mhm.
Um, I noticed that you managed to hold on to the Jamaican tongue. How did that happen? Because I know Jamaicans who lived there. Well, I guess I know Jamaicans who lived there who has completely transitioned to the American tongue, so to speak, the accent and all. But I noticed that you still have a full Jamaican accent. I guess it's something that you can switch between.
Oh yes, we're multi-linguistic or multilingual or whatever if that's the term. So we
Yeah.
have the ability to multitask, and never say we can't twang. So I know how to go in between. I know how to bring forth I guess, the proper talk. And
Mhm.
then I don't forget that I'm a Jamaican dialect when I need to. So it hasn't been a challenge, but it's a challenge when you're in the school system and you come from a Caribbean descent or from an island, and your accent might be very strong. So you find it in your class, they're like, "What did you just say?" Or "Where are you from?" And I knew a lot of classmates from back then used to share their stories about them migrating from like from another Caribbean country, and they were ridiculed and mocked for their accent. In my time going to school too, a lot of Caribbean kids were really, 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 really looked down on. Were mocked. Yeah, they felt out of place. So for some, they take it very serious. There's been a lot of issues with that, but for me, thank God, I didn't have that issue at all. I don't know if it's because my family that was already here in the States when I arrived, they were already, been here long enough to know the terms on how to, so that, the transition was easy. And then when you're a child at 7 years old, in that developmental stage, your environment, you suck up what's in your environment. So if you hear a tone or a certain way of speaking, it's not hard for you to shift.
Right, right. Sure,
Hmm.
that's true.
Yeah.
Okay. So I noticed in your bio that you get involved in a lot of community programs, specifically those that surround youth.
Mhm.
Where did that passion come from?
Well, that passion came from me giving birth to my 12-year-old genius, which is 12-year-old now. But as he was developing, he was diagnosed later on with the autism spectrum disorder. So for me, that was my passion, my lifestyle, and that's what birthed the movement of me being an advocate and being the voice for other moms that has children with special needs and autism. So that gave me the push, the passion, the drive, and I'm going to different community events and areas, spreading the word, spreading knowledge, resources, and just being an encouragement and a voice to those families.
Okay. Okay. That's good. So now that we've gotten to know you a little bit, let's talk about what we're actually here to talk about. Not that you're not important. But we're here to talk about the autism spectrum and what that is. So, if you don't mind, can you define that for us?
Oh, of course. So according to Google.com, the medical term, autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disorder. So developmental, it happens over the process of the child's growth and development. It
Hmm.
affects their communication, their speech, their social skills, and their cognitive abilities.
Hmm.
So it's been a controversial disorder, being that it's a spectrum and it has different levels to the spectrum. It could be high functioning, as they say, or low functioning. So it goes up, it goes down. It's on a scale. And then also the autism spectrum disorder has different components to it. There's other characteristics or disorders that is attached to it that makes it multifaceted. So it's kind of sometimes harder or challenging for doctors or those to classify. For example, you have children who may be on the disorder but also have ADHD and other, little components there.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a broad spectrum, but definitely it's a developmental disorder.
Okay, so basically, because of the different ways that someone can have it or the different levels, diagnosis can be a challenge.
Yes, definitely a challenge. Hmm.
Okay, at
Hmm.
what point did you become aware that your son was autistic?
Um, so let's say around 3, 4 years old, I
Hmm.
noticed the nonverbal. He wasn't speaking.
Hmm.
We know that they're still developing speech and learning, repetitive stuff, the basic. Hi, mommy, I need this. I'm hungry. The basic things. He was not expressing those behaviors or communicating that to me or his father or his sister. And I said, okay, well, let's see what's happening here. I started to research on the autism spectrum disorders because I learned about that a little before having him in my prenatal care. So those who are affiliated with his nurses, I had a private nurse at home that would come and would give me, paperwork and information about having a child. And one of the things that the signs of autism were nonverbal, or they're not able to communicate. There no eye contact, repetition of words, but not full statements. Also, the sensory part of it, that's very key. Their oversensitivity for noise and sounds, that will cause them to go hide somewhere. So my son literally was operating and doing all those things. So that was a key and a red flag for me.
Mm.
Yes. So at that point, that's how I knew that something was going on with my son.
Okay, and did you take him? Did you get him to a specialist right away? Is it something that they were able to say, okay, he's at this level, he's here on the spectrum or there on the spectrum? What was that process of diagnosis, official diagnosis like?
Well, for my son, because he, how would I say this? He also had a Thai tongue when he was born. So I don't know if you're familiar with a Thai tongue, but there is a medical term, which I can't remember it right this minute, but if you Google Thai tongue, it'll tell you. And what it is, his tongue was literally the string that's under the tongue was attached. So they had to do a surgical
Mm.
quick incision and cut it for to loose the tongue. So that was
Right,
my concern. And at that point, I, as the mom, was like, well, maybe that's contributing for him not even speak his speech development.
right,
So
right.
I went to his pediatrician and I said to her, listen, he needs to get this snipped. And I got some information and some encouragement and help from his principal when he started pre-K. But she was saying to me, Mommy, this happened to my grandson. So I know exactly where you are. You need to get services for him. You're going to have to take him to a doctor and let them slip his tongue, slip the string so he can loose his tongue. Then he can get the therapies that he needs. So I got that information from her, but everything else I had to go in and research on my own. Moving
Hmm.
forward, I went to his pediatrician and I was concerned. She tells me, well, he doesn't need to snip the tongue because he will grow out of it. Let me just make this clear to moms out there. You can never grow out of a tied tongue. If the child has that string, it has to be snipped. It has
Yeah.
to be. So she's telling me no, and I'm telling her no. It has to get done. So um, I had to go outside of that clinic of that doctor and do my own and find someone that was able to do it. I didn't take no for an answer because I knew that if I didn't do this, it would delay even more the development of my son. So I went, researched, found a surgeon, a pediatric surgeon, which was able to do it. It was like less than 2 minutes. And from there, I moved forward and got services. I went to the school, Department of Education. I went to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I found out what my son needed. We got an evaluation because the child has to be evaluated in order for them to diagnose to classify if that child has autism, whatever the classification is. And that's what I did and was able to get the services that he needs.
The tied tongue. The doctor told you that it didn't need to be cut.
No, no, because they tend to be very passive and laid back. Oh, they're young, they'll grow out of it. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm listening to this lady in front of me telling me that my son doesn't need it. Uh,
Mm.
and I'm like, no, miss, he needs to get it. And see, if I didn't do my research and gotten some mothers or parents or educators or those in the field that had experience, then I probably would have considered like, wait a minute, what's going on here? You know what I mean? And I had a family member who had a tie tongue and had to get it snipped before. So that would in itself was something for me to say, no, 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 you ain't telling me nothing, miss. My son needs to get what he needs to get so he can loose to get it so he can get the therapies to help his development. Hmm.
Wow, that's amazing. After doing your research and kind of getting some ideas as to what might be going on to your son, going on with your son, and then him getting diagnosed as being autistic. Before I ask you that question, at what age was he officially diagnosed?
Okay, so he wasn't officially diagnosed until about he had a late diagnosis. I would say about 7, 6, 7. It was later. But he was definitely diagnosed with a classification of speech and language impairment. So he did receive a classification initially because they couldn't identify. Like I mentioned before, when it comes to the spectrum, it's so intricate that you can't really tell right away whether it's a language and speech due to the Thai tongue or is it a cognitive or what it is because it's a developmental disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So it was speech and language initially, and that's what they diagnosed him, and that was the classification initially. Then moving along, once they were watching his progress, and I'm gonna be honest, one of the reasons why he wasn't re-diagnosed again because I had to make sure as a parent that I trusted those individuals that were given the diagnosis. And just mommy bear, that's me being that protective mom that I am. And you have to be careful when it comes to this area of special needs. We have a lot of stories and history of those who are in that educational field of special needs that all they want to do is just drop a diagnosis on your child so they can get some money. We're just going to be honest. I'm going to be straightforward and just real at how it is. So you are the best advocate for your child, mommy, and you have to make sure you put the work in and you're comfortable with whomever hands you're in care and allowing your child to be in the care of. So that being said, his diagnosis was language and speech impairment initially, and I continued to do research as they continued to evaluate him and to see his growth, and his goals. Or we did these IEP meetings to see where he is and the levels of his academic, his cognitive, and all that. And moving forward, as he kept going grade to grade, they realized that no, there's something more going on. I'll give an example. When he was in pre-K, the oversensory and stimulation would cause him to go hide. He would hide under the desk. He would under the tables in the classroom. He would do repetition, the repetitive speech again. He was a great reader. That's a pointer when it comes to children with special needs. I don't know, with autism especially, their ability to read is dynamic. He was reading and his vocabulary was so extensive. But here's the issue, the challenge was the comprehension part. So you find that, because they're very good, their brains, they know how to, their memory are amazing and they can repeat and their memory are great. But it's the comprehension part that was the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So given that, the teacher would say, well, he will participate when the reading parts and assignment, but when it was the how did, why, and who, and what, and when, he wouldn't be able to respond or to comprehend. It was more repetitiveness. So
Mm-hmm.
moving forward, as like I said, going through the different tests and being very present in his school with his teachers. I communicated with them. And if they were acting up, I went over the head because I'm going to get what I need from my child and you're not going to label him. So moving forward, it was before we transitioned to relocate. They had a new child psychologist in the school, and we had a conversation. We spoke about where Jordan was and his development. And she said to me, Miss Edwards at the time, um, I think we need to get him reevaluated. And I think that he is on the spectrum. I said, you know what? Let's see what can happen. Let's do this. And I entrusted her because I am a woman of God, for one, and I have to hear God say something to me and confirm it that I can trust this individual before I move forward. And he
Mm-hmm.
said to me, you can trust her because she has his best interest at heart. It's not about a label or what she think or what she thought. She was ready. And I said, okay. And we went through it. We got him reevaluated. And that's when they got the official diagnosis that he's on the spectrum. And given, yes, go ahead.
So at that point, I can imagine what kind of emotions were you flooded with? I know you would have been doing a lot of research prior to the official diagnosis,
Mhm.
but the official diagnosis must have. What was the emotions that? What were the emotions that you were feeling at that point?
I will be honest, Sharika, I was already, when you find out as a parent that something is different with your child, it was okay with me that he's different, but it's what society would think of your child and how society will respond because of that child different is what caused the fear, the hurt, the frustration, the disappointments, and all of that. But um, being that I've already noticed that and I was in it with him from the time he was, 3 or 2, when I realized something was going on, I was already consumed in that life. I was already consumed in that. So I was already, I wouldn't say used to, but it becomes something that becomes a part of your lifestyle every day that it didn't shock me much. I'm gonna be honest because you're already seeing the indications as a parent. You're doing these things. You're the assistant. He's nonverbal at the time. So let me just put that in because I didn't know if I mentioned that he wasn't speaking. So you're working as a mom, you're doing what you're supposed to do every day with that child. You already know what time it is as far as you already going through the process of the emotional responses and the emotional roller coaster and all that. So I would say that when they officially gave him the diagnosis, it was like, okay, um, I'm already in it. I'm already going through the backlash and dealing with these individuals and deal with people who's questioning, having to respond to this person, communicate to that. Why is he doing this? Why is he not doing that, etc. So when I got the official diagnosis, honestly, it didn't change anything. All it did was make me a more stronger mom. It only pushed me to investigate more. It only pushed me to do what I needed to do as a mom and be, like I said, the advocate for other moms that weren't, aware or knew what to do. It inspired me, honestly. I would just say that. And yeah,
And what has the journey been like for you since then?
so the journey has been interesting. I would say because as a special needs mom, as an autism mom, I have a genius. So when you have a genius child, they require a lot more. Um, it's a lot to learn because it's different, but different in a good way. It has encouraged me to step out the box, I would say, and to look at things differently. Because children on the spectrum, they're different because they learn differently, they interpret differently, but that doesn't make them like, that they're weird or something. No, they learn differently, and I've learned to change the way I approach, even with his teaching, because I was his first teacher. I would literally create my entire apartment at the time into a school. I created that for him, that space. So I learned how to create a way of my son communicating. And it was amazing. I've learned so much. It's amazing. It's challenging sometimes because, like I said, when he was nonverbal, I wasn't able to identify his needs. So that took another level of patience, another level of endurance. You get frustrated sometimes, but I had to learn and I had to depend on God. Let me say that I had to depend on God to guide me as a parent because there wasn't a manual to say, this is how you do it. So I had to ask God many times, you gave me this child, so you have to teach me how to do this. I'm giving him back to you, God. So teach me how to maneuver and how to learning, researching. It's been amazing. It's been a challenge, but I wouldn't change it for the world. Mm-mm.
And how did you learn to speak? Was that a process of therapy? Or what did you have to do as a mother? What was that process like?
The process of my son transitioning from nonverbal to verbal, first of all the glory has to be to God because if God didn't tell me before that I'm going to heal him, I'm God that's going to heal him, despite of what the doctors were saying, the teachers were saying, and everyone else was saying. You have to trust my word that I'm going to heal him, even when I couldn't see it at that initial moment. So, for my son, God said to me, "You're going to get his therapies. You're going to get what he needs because it's in the process of the therapies that I'm doing the healing." But the reason now that makes sense to me is because I didn't know that God was going to take me on this journey to be able to be that advocate and be who I am for other moms as well. So at that point, I was like, okay, God, so why not just heal him? Why I got to do all of that? That was my question. But given God had a purpose greater than what I think I expected. So I did. He had his occupational therapy and he had his speech therapy and other related services that was helpful for him and to help him his development. So, in a nutshell, God said what he was going to say. And because God is not like man to lie, nor he's the son of man to repent, if he say he going to do something, he's going to do it. So including that, because I ain't going to say but, including that, I did what he said to do. I got his services. The environment, shift was conducive for his development, social skills enhanced, and then he began to speak even more, more and more and more. So here we are 12 years later, and he's talking like a parrot. He talking, chat, 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 like them said the farmer's house in Jamaica. And guess what? I'm grateful. I'm happy. Sometimes we have little headbutts because he want to tell me what to do and what he wants or what he don't want to do. But guess what? I'm grateful because he's learning to express himself and tell me how he feels. Before, he wouldn't be able to, and he'll get frustrated and get upset and have these meltdowns and these tantrums. So now he's at the place where he's just really expressing himself, and sometimes I have to say, hold on, Deborah, and take it easy, but in a good way. So yes, he's speaking, and all glory be to God, including his therapies. Mm.
That's truly amazing because to see him go from not being able to speak to being a blabbermouth, that must be exciting for you and for him too, because I know the frustration that comes, like babies when they're trying to say something and it's not coming out. Some babies do get frustrated too. So I can just imagine for him and for you as a mom to have to go through that and work through that and listen to it and see him frustrated and not know what to do. All of that must have been frustrating for you too. So
Mhm.
I'm glad to hear that he was able to speak eventually. um on average, as it relates to autism kids, and I know you work with autism moms, Is it that most kids on the spectrum do not speak, or they have a challenge speaking initially? What's that like?
On an average, majority of the encounters that I've had experienced personally,
Mm-hmm.
most of them are nonverbal in the beginning, um, and some do transition into speaking, and some don't. Um, or just they're challenged. From my experience, I don't know everyone's experience, but with the moms that I've spoken with and encountered and gave consultation to, their children are nonverbal. That's one of their biggest challenges. And even with the nonverbal, some of the families and the children have more severe conditions, I would say. So then there's other things added to their developmental part and their ability excuse me, communicate. So then you have some that are emotionally challenged, I would say. So you have the emotional piece that's maybe attached to it. They and which causes and triggers, excuse me, behavioral issues, because they're not able to express themselves, their sensitivity emotionally. So that causes a lot of tantrums or behavioral issues. Then you'll have those who may have physical disabilities attached to that. There's so many different things, ADHD, so the hypertension, hypertension, the levels of that. So there's so many components. So there's so many different components that's attached to children's on spectrum, excuse me, that's on the spectrum. Um, but you'll definitely find many of them that are nonverbal. So to answer your question, yes, you're going to find most of the cases that the children are nonverbal, because once again, we're going to go back to the beginning. As I initially stated, it's a developmental disorder. So it's the development of the brain that happens in the nervous system in the brain, that triggers when at a certain point. So we can't really pinpoint when little Timmy is going to speak. We don't know. It develops over time, whether it's with the therapies they're getting and the services, the exercise and the ability as a parent to be proactive in that child's life, to continue to speak to little Timmy, even though you think they're not hearing, they're hearing and they're listening. So as you continue and be consistent with the visual aids, whether it's listening to different educational devices and speaking with them, visual basics, colors and pictures using pet books. That's a system of a book that has pictures that is used for kids to help them communicate. So it's a book with different images, and the images will demonstrate whether you want to eat, you want to drink, I need to use the bathroom, and the child will point to that thing as you speak to them. They can't verbalize it, but they're touching it. So you have to, as the parent, to continue to do those things with your child, engage and introduce those things to help them along their development. So we pray and with hopes, and yes, with prayer, of course, number one, and have being a faithful parent with hopes. Our desire is for our children to actually speak, comprehend, and be able to do the basic things that tying a shoelace is very rewarding to a mom with a child with special needs, because that's basic to someone else. Like tying a shoelace, that's nothing. But for a mom with a child with autism or special needs, that's a big, big thing for us because of the challenges that they're faced. Yeah.
I understand completely.
Mhm.
Tying a shoelace is a big thing for us moms with normal kids too.
Mhm.
It can be frustrating to have your child come every 5 minutes to tie their lace. It's not a
Mhm.
nice thing. So,
Mhm.
what are some of the reasons why a special needs child would throw a tantrum? And as a mom who has a child with special needs and who provides services for other moms with special needs, how does a mother or a family deals with a child who randomly and oftentimes throws a tantrum?
You know what? I'll be honest. My son used to have his meltdowns too. There were times, because once again, the communication barrier. You just imagine yourself as a person, us as individuals, and thinking, being a little, child, and you want to say something and you want to express yourself, but it just can't come out your mouth. You know what you're feeling, you know what's going on, and you
Yeah.
just can't say it because your tongue won't allow you to express that. So the frustration, the anger builds up, and you just and
Yeah.
it's a lot. So um, and then another factor with children with autism, their sensory are so intense. It's inclined. So their sensory issues or their sense of things, it's inclined to another level. So just use an example. Our sensory is at 15 level. Their sensory um, it intensifies to 100. I'm gonna say it like that. So it's everything is it's very intense. So the sound that we would hear, it's magnified to another level for them. So you could just imagine somebody wee in their ears, and it's just like a fire truck, and it's so intense. So then that triggers them to go to have moments and meltdowns. And with that, what as a parent, you just have to give them a moment to allow them to express it. It may not look good all the time because 9 out of 10 times they throwing themselves all over or they're screaming because they don't know how to express it any other way. So
Right.
when you're in a public place, they're gonna look at your kid, your child. I'm to that picnic there, and I'll be like, I'm that mother. Try me with mine. So you have people who are not compassionate, and they won't understand because the first thing I would say in Jamaica, I walk to that bad pit there. Why is that child acting up? Oh, they're bad. So they're quick to point a finger. But as a parent with special needs, you allow them as much to be expressive, but not to the point where they're hurting themselves or anyone around them. You give them some space so they can get themselves together. And as a parent, you want to just say, are you okay? You try to console them because sometimes they can't speak. So as a nonverbal, you either embrace them, try to find, okay, are they okay? Are you okay? Or they'll probably do a movement or utter something. Um, so you want to create that in the midst of their meltdowns. You try to allow them, but you don't want them to the place where it causes, any, disturbance. But it is what it is, and you do your best. Give them a little time, give them a little space, get their minds right, get themselves together, and allow them to just, yeah, with hopes that it changes. But what are you going to do? It's part of what comes with the spectrum
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
the disorder, they would say. Yeah. So as a
Yeah.
mom, it's not easy. It's not. I have moms that come to me and they're calling me, Mel, I was on the bus with my child and he was having a meltdown because maybe somebody rung the bell or they heard a sound from something and it triggered them. And the trigger caused them to scream or to yell or to start to, and they're looking at her child or they're talking down or what's wrong? Why he acting up so long or why he doing this so long? And as a parent, that's very hurtful because you want to protect your child and then you want to tell that chick to mind her business before she get popped, you know? So I'm a boxer, I don't. You know what I'm saying? So it's not easy. So you have to first be able to attend to that child quickly and then compose yourself mentally so you don't go ahead and do something that you ain't got no business doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's
Wow.
challenging. Mm-hmm.
So, seeing that it can be so overwhelming for moms to deal with a child with special needs, let me not say deal. It can be so overwhelming for a mom to manage the pressures that comes with a child with having a child with special needs.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about self-care for those mothers, right? What is your self-care routine? What do you do to ensure that you are able to compose yourself in those high stress moments, those breakdown moments, those moments when you're feeling frustrated, like I just can't do this anymore? How do you manage to compose yourself in those moments? What are your methods?
Girl, I have to laugh because, oh God, I'm going to be very transparent once again and be honest.
I
Girl,
appreciate that.
sometimes in the moment, you know what I say? Father God, Papa Jesus, I need you right now. I need you right here, right now, because I can't do this. That's the initial response, Um, but girl, sometimes you don't even know what you're gonna say. But I would say that of course I'm gonna always say, God help me. But my response to the situation ain't always God. You human too. You want to go off, you want to do this. But I'll say this for self-care on an overall, um, I learned to take time for me because reason why I say this is when you are your child's voice, when you're your child's advocate, when you're your child's everything, especially as a mom with a child on the spectrum that is nonverbal, you become like that twin. You do everything and everything. So you're consuming all your time, your energy, and everything is attached to that child, which is good, but you have to create balance because you're pouring out so much energy. You're doing so much that you'll lose yourself if you're not careful and being that mom and everything, which is fine, but there has to be balance because when you're empty, you have to be restored. So I've learned that, you know what, as a mom, you have to know when to take a break. You have to take time to woosah, take a break to get your mental and your restore your psyche. You have to get restored. You have to go somewhere, whether you ask your mom or your significant other or someone that you can trust and care with your child to take that child for a minute so you can go get a breather to clear your mind and your space. So I've learned that as my child developed even more, that I was able to entrust him with them, with others that, when they came around, given that he started to go to school. So that gave me time during the day to take time for myself, to breathe, to restore, to get my girl self on, to fix myself up, go to the salon, go to the spa, take a minute to let my hair down and breathe, and even socialize with my other girlfriends or people that are around me. So it's important, mom. I know that, our children needs us because especially if they're nonverbal at that stage and if they're young, so you're consumed, but you don't want to get so consumed that you lose yourself. And then depression sets in. You have to be careful with that as well. So I encourage my mom when it comes to self-care, girl, I need you to get up. They call me, I said, mm-mm. If you have the ability, get out that house. I don't care if you got to walk down the block, go by the water, take a drive, walk, get some ice cream, get something that's going to bring peace and joy to yourself as a person. Read a book if that's what you want, or if you're tired of just the mental stimulation of thinking, just go and breathe. Take a minute to unwind because we pour out so much that self care is imperative. It's like you can't live without. You have to make sure you're maintaining self care and optimum health because guess what? If you're no good to yourself, you're not going to be any good to your child.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I
it's important.
I agree with
Mhm.
that 100%. I always say that you take care of you first. I know the people in your the people in your life is important, but
Mhm.
if you don't take care of you, you are of no use to those persons. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, as a mother on a whole, we can feel guilty if we take time to take care of ourselves. And we might be thinking, oh, I can't take this time to take care of me because so and so need this. I can't use this money because so and so need that. What would you say to a mom who is feeling this way, especially one of those special needs
Yes, the
moms?
guilt as a parent. So you were saying that, as a mom, you know, um, taking some time out or some of your finances to self-care, you feel guilty about it. Yes, that's automatic for any parent. Sometimes they're like, well, I could take that and go buy little Twinkie shoes or put that down and put it aside. But there come a time when you have to say, listen, I need to, because I'm mommy and mommy needs self-care. You have to understand that God will supply all your needs. If you really believe, He said, I'll supply your needs, and He'll make a way. And I'm a living testimony that can tell you that God has provided for my son and I, to the point where I'm like, oh, God. But I understand with that mom that's like, well, if I take all this, what's going to happen? No, you have to remember that you are important, mommy. If you're not in good health, how are you going to be okay for little Timmy or for your child? So what you have to remember, you might feel guilty, but I would feel more guilty and feel worse if I knew that I had the ability to self-care and that knowing that the self-care is going to benefit myself and my child and I don't do it. So I would say to that mom, there's nothing to feel guilty about. What you feel guilty about is if you don't self care and then you get sick, or God forbid something happens to you and you're not in the condition or the shape to take care of your child, especially if you're a single parent and you don't have family or anyone around you. It is more than imperative that you make sure your health and your self care is taken care of. Yes.
I like how firm you were when you said that, like, this needs to be done.
Yeah, you know why? Because I've been tested. I can only speak on this because I've been there and done that. And I'm at the place now. See, God will allow you, I'll say this, He'll allow you to go through some things, I would say by default, organically, without any assistance, without anyone, so He can get the glory. Because as I said before, I didn't know where God was going to take me with this. But He allows you, and I used to cry, and me used to bawl, God, what make me? Why me? And now I understand, because then I have to testify. I can't tell you, Sharika, if you are autism mom or mom, to say, well, I know what it is if I have never experienced this. But I had to go through it. So I understand the days when, me, I gotta tell you, I'm very transparent. There were times when I couldn't even buy a new panty because as a mom and being a wife at the time, we as the woman, we keep the house afloat. We make sure, even if our husbands are the financial providers and the ones that are making it happen, we make sure that money circulates well. And as a good woman or a wife, you want to make sure that the children are attended to and everything else is attended to. So you will cheat yourself. So I know what it is when, boy, I want to go to Victoria's Secret, go buy some new panty, then the panty, and I'm like, well, if I do that, is it necessary, or etc. A new perfume or something to make me feel good? But I say this to say, at the point where I'm at now, I've learned that no, Melissa, you have to take care of you too. Because I went to the place where it was depressive. I felt like I was losing who I am as my identity as a person. And God have to lick the egg. Wake up, smell the coffee. Are you crazy? No, seriously. And I've learned, and I'm learning to be unapologetic for my self care as a single parent and a business owner and a mommy. When God said, we're not going to do this, because if you don't do this, your health is going to be affected. And if your health is affected, that little boy that you love so much, that loves you, you're not going to be here to be able to be that mommy to him or any good for yourself. So that's why I'm so passionate when I say that. Hmm.
Yeah, I like that. If you haven't experienced it, you can't really say much with impact. And I can definitely tell that you've been there.
Hmm.
So you're the perfect person to be sharing this message. What impact do you want to make on the world?
Um, hmm. As an autism mom, as a woman first, and as a black woman, being a autism mom and a businesswoman, first of all, a woman of God, not perfect, but being that woman of faith.
Mm-hmm.
I want to impact, I want to be a voice to those who don't have a voice, when it comes to the area of special needs, to be that encouragement, to be that person that says, the world would say, or society would say, that my child would not achieve. But here it is, I have a child that's an overachiever, and he's achieving and he's thriving and he's progressing. So I want to let the world know that, and moms, that when they say you can, or whomever say, it can happen. Because I'm a witness, I'm here as a testament that God can do all things but fail. And with you doing what you're supposed to do, it can happen. I want to build community. I want to inspire and encourage moms and families to build community. Do not be afraid to network and be a part of a movement, be of something positive that can impact others, that would change that little child's life, or change that mom's mindset from going to a place of depression or suicide, and giving her hope to know that your child is not a curse, but a blessing to the world. Your child has something to offer this world. Your child has something to teach this world. It's teaching this world that is so stuck in a box, and to think that if a child doesn't do this way, there's something dysfunctional about them. No, my child is a musical genius. He plays about seven different percussions and instruments. So, and he's very, very, very artistic in art and creativity. So he has a lot to offer the world. So I want to be that impact and that mom, to be that voice to those who are in a low place or discouraged, just to be that voice of reasoning, and share with the world that our children are amazing and they're geniuses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you said something about having a child with special needs that I want to pinpoint,
Mm-hmm.
because the common thing is when you have a child who does not act like the average child does, or they don't do things like the average child does, there is this stigma
Mm-hmm.
attached, and that stigma prevents you, even you as a mother,
Mm-hmm.
from taking the necessary steps to ensure that your child gets the best care, the best help, the best education, because you're concerned with what society thinks about the child
Mm-hmm.
and how they view the child. And that prevents a lot of kids in similar situations as your son was in from actually progressing. So they live their entire lives non-verbal, unable to contribute to society just because of this stigma. So that's
Mm-hmm.
really, really important that you brought that up.
Mm-hmm. It's true because even being nonverbal doesn't stop your ability to do other things and to be impactful, and be an impact to others. Just the main fact that there's a mother that has a child with special needs that um you know have this child from birth and growing up to learn that child has a disorder, whatever they will call it. I say a superpower. um and then you have to thrive and you have to go through this world with this child and they never speak or never, didn't get to the place where they develop the way that you would desire or whatever it is or society would consider, but you still love that child and you still embrace that child and you still push through in spite of what or despite of what society and the attacks that you have and have gotten, and you still love that child and you deal with the anguish and the pain and the disappointments. The fact that that mom is doing that and that child is still there and they're that's a lot for people to learn. There's so much to learn from that. There's so much for us to learn, that you put away your selfish desires and what your selfish stuff, and you cater for that child in spite of what society says, and you still love them unconditionally. That takes another level of confidence, of strength, of boldness, because society could be, listen, we already know. People could be so condescending, so
Yeah.
nasty, uncompassionate, and rude. So there's a lot for us to take from that as parents or just individuals. When you come to the special needs, there's a lot of people who are intrigued by autism children. They're still researching, they're still trying to figure out what this is and what's happening because they're so amazing. I will give you an example. My son's teacher, his music teacher, came to me one day. He said, Miss Edwards, sometimes Jordan is not in music class, but when he comes to the classroom and we play those notes, he catches it so quickly. And he's such a brilliant with it. And he's like, I don't understand how he does that. I said, because he's a genius. And I say this to say, I'm such a proud mama. And don't get me wrong, because some people will listen to this or the replay and say, well, is she trying to say that, we're not going to acknowledge that our children have certain delays and challenges? No, we have to acknowledge it first in order for us to move forward. But what I'm saying is, we're not going to allow that to hinder the development of our children. We're not going to allow that for them to point a finger or to pacify or to be, no, 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 no. We're acknowledging it because acknowledging it first is how you're going to get the steps to get the help and the care that they need. But what I'm saying, it's not going to cripple there for them to advance, or it's not going to cripple us, or we're not going to allow it to cripple us and our children. Because I'm a believer in positive affirmations and speaking positive things in spite of what I see.
Yeah,
Hmm. So I just
absolutely.
want to clear that up.
Now, your prayer journal was born out of all of the trials and the tribulations
Hmm.
and the triumphs that have has come out of you being an autism mom. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
All right. Woo, woo. That's my happy place too. I know I travel with my handy dandy, it's upside down, my handy dandy prayer journal. If my tribe, they know me on Instagram. Every morning I grab my prayer journal. It's in my car. And my prayer journal was birthed through my challenges with my son. It's called 10 Powerful Prayers for Special Needs Moms. And it's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and also my website. But I'll say this, this journal here is dear to me because going through my process when my son, before he was diagnosed, but when he officially diagnosed, I would cry and I would write down prayers in my little black and white notebook. When I was going through, whether it was in school he was going through, I heard like something negative or something that downed me, I would write it in journal and talk to God about it. Um, and then even when he was in school and they would give annual reports or his report card wasn't that great, I would say, "Oh gosh," and then I would write it in my book. And as I wrote, I would write a prayer that parallel to whatever he was going through. For instance, if he was challenged with speech, then I would go in and write something about speech and then pray about it. And then write a scripture that God would lead me to just to encourage me. God would encourage me through those times. So moving forward, I wrote prayers down. I would specify the parts of the brain, whatever's going on, and write a prayer, and I would pray over it. And during the pandemic, I was here and the Lord said, I need you to make that into a prayer journal. I said, wait, what? He said, I need you to take those prayers in that black and white notebook and I need you to write a prayer journal to encourage moms. And along with the prayer were affirmations. Like I said, I'm a strong believer in positive affirmations. So I would speak those over my son and myself. I would say, you are a genius. You're great. You're the head. You're the tail. All those good affirmations. And now, right now, he's 12 years old. He'll let you know when he sees you. Oh, I'm a genius. And I know it, you know? And I encourage moms because it's important what we speak over our children. Even when he was nonverbal, I was speaking that to his spirit man, to his ear. I would say this even if he couldn't repeat it or verbalize it, but I know he was taking it in. So it's important. So my journal was birthed through that. So during the pandemic, the Lord said, turn it into a journal. So I self published. I got it done. And here it is because I need moms to know that it's possible. And all things are possible through Christ who strengthens us if you believe it. And even if you say, well, my faith is not like that, well, guess what? That mama bear in us, mama, when it comes to our children, you're not going to allow anybody to speak negative over your child. So therefore, this is here to affirm and also to journal because it's therapeutic, mommy. Write it down. When you're feeling some type of way and the world don't understand what's going on with you, a little bit Twinkie, write it down because God understands and you understand. So this is why this came about, and that's how that came about.
Beautiful. I love. It's funny, but you said it earlier because God will allow us to go through some things, and from whatever he put us through or He carried us through, there's
Mhm.
always so much power in there. There's always so much lesson in there, and if we just trust and have faith and don't allow ourselves to get torn down by everything that's happening around us, we
Mhm.
can come out so transformed, completely different, stronger, more powerful, more aware, stronger faith. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Mhm.
So now, if you're seeing this, I know that you more than likely have a ton more question for Melissa, right? She most likely has a lot of answers for you as well because she has a community where she provides these services for moms with special needs, right?
Yeah.
With moms with their kids on the autism spectrum. So, Melissa, please tell us how persons who are seeing this can connect with you, how they can be beneficial be or they can get the benefit of the services that you offer.
It's okay, girl. I get tongue tied all the time. Don't you see? I'll be like, yes,
Yeah,
it's
that
okay.
part.
Yes, girl, listen. So if you would like to contact me or even to be a part of the community and our tribe, I am available on Instagram. And my Instagram handle page is Extraordinary Moms with an X. So Xtraordinary Moms. I'm like, oh, you spell again. Extra. So extraordinary moms, take off the E and it's just the X. Extraordinary moms. I'm on Instagram. Also on Facebook, it's Extraordinary Moms or Extraordinary Moms Foundation. On Clubhouse, it's Melissa Mason, and I also have Single Autism Mom group. So I have a club there as well, a Single Autism Mom and definitely extraordinary moms. So all across the board, it's extraordinary moms on Facebook, extraordinary moms on Instagram, extraordinary moms on Twitter, I believe, and on Clubhouse it's single autism mom. You can also, if you have any questions or inquiry, you can email me at extraordinarymoms@gmail.com. If you would like to, you need consultation. I'm also a consultant. I'm a autism support consultant. So if you want to book a session with me in regards to your child, if you don't know, if you think your child might be on the spectrum and you don't know how to maneuver, you want to learn about IEPs, what that is, we can book a session. I can, guide you through. Also, if you would like to purchase my prayer journal, it's available on Amazon. So Amazon.com, and it's called 10 Powerful Prayers for Special Needs Moms. It's also available at Barnes and Nobles. You can download or you can have it shipped to you. And also on my website, that's for my other business, but I also have them on my website. It's called Heavenly Head Wraps, www.heavenlyheadwraps.store. So I have three places where you can purchase this prayer journal. Definitely, so we can connect, build. I have different discussions weekly on my Clubhouse platform or my Instagram platform. We talk everything autism. If you're a specialist, if you're a parent, if you're an educator, if you're a social worker, if you're someone in that field or anything connected to autism, and you want to be a blessing, or you want to share, or you want to have a conversation so we can get resources or information, please let me know. We're open for different discussions. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, guys, you heard it from Melissa Mason. Her son is a genius. Yes, he's autistic, but that doesn't make him any less of a genius, right? That actually makes him more inclined because he's more sensitive to his environment. So, I want to thank you so much, Melissa, for being here with me today. I enjoyed our chat and our conversation. It was lovely. And I appreciate the openness and the honesty and the transparency. So thank you so much for being here with me today. I truly, truly appreciate it. Thank you for being so stern about the self care.
Yes, girl, I'm telling you, this year, girl, you better make sure you self care. I don't care. Do it. And it doesn't cost much.
Yeah, it made me want to go and do some self care myself.
Girl, get some cucumbers if you can't afford the spa. Get you
Yeah.
a diffuser, get some aromatherapy, put little cucumber by your eye, and kumbaya and tell the people them, go out with daddy, go with auntie. I need a moment.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Again, thank you so much for being here with me today. And guys, if you or someone you know has a child who is on the autism spectrum, please share this video with them. They might find it useful. They might use it. It might be able to provide them with some resource. So definitely go ahead and share that. Again, Melissa, thank you so much for being here with me today. And you have been watching Conversations with Sharika, where spirits go to find their souls. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you learned something, and I will see you on the next episode. Have a
My
pleasant
pleasure.
rest.
Thank you.